Türkiye, daha yeşil ve daha dirençli bir geleceğe doğru güçlü bir dönüşüm yolculuğunda. 2009'dan bu yana EBRD, donörler ve yerel anlaşmalı finans kuruluşlarıyla birlikte bu dönüşümü destekliyor. EBRD, yenilenebilir enerji ve döngüsel ekonomi kapsamında 12.000'den fazla yeşil ve sürdürülebilir projeyi destekleyerek yaklaşık 3 milyar euro finansman sağladı. ...2022 yılında EBRD, önceki programların başarısı üzerine GEFF ve Türkiye Cumhuriyeti Hazine ve Maliye Bakanlığı'nın desteğiyle Türkiye'nin yeşil ekonomiye geçişine katkı sağlayan 521,5 milyon euro büyüklüğündeki GEFF Türkiye 1 programını başlattı. Program 2024 yılında başlatılan GEFF Türkiye 2 ile devam etti. İklim değişikliğinin olumsuz etkilerinin azaltılması ve yeni koşullara uyum sağlanması için verilen destek arttırılarak etki daha da genişletildi. 750 milyon euro finansman sağlanan bu faz, anlaşmalı finans kuruluşlarının kurumsal kapasitesini güçlendirdi. Böylece kurumların yeşil finansman yetkinliklerini kalıcı hale getirmek amacıyla 2025'te yeni fazın önü açılmış oldu. Ve şimdi bu yolculuk yeni bir aşamaya geçiyor. GEFF Türkiye 3. EBRD tarafından sağlanan ve GEFF ile Tayvan ICDF tarafından desteklenen 1 milyar euro finansman büyüklüğüne sahip bu yeni program, Türkiye'nin yeşil dönüşümünü en çok ihtiyaç duyulan alanlarda hızlandırmayı amaçlıyor. GEFF Türkiye 3, sürdürülebilir büyüme için özel sektör katılımını güçlendirmeye devam ederken, 2023 depremlerinden etkilenen bölgelerin yeşil iyileşmesi için özel bir odağa da sahip. GEFF Türkiye 3 ile anlaşmalı finans kuruluşları, yoğun kurumsal kapasite geliştirme desteğinden yararlanarak finans sektörünün düşük karbonlu bir geleceğe hazırlığına katkı sağlıyor. Programın önceki fazlarından edinilen deneyimle kadınların yeşil finansmana ve yeşil teknolojilere erişimini destekleyerek Türkiye'de kalıcı bir ekonomiyi teşvik etmeye devam ediyoruz.
Herkese merhabalar. Öncelikle ben Bahar Feyzan. İkinci kez sizinle birlikteyim. Burada bu organizasyonda. Bundan da gayet mutluluk duyuyorum. Sayın protokol üyeleri, EBRD temsilcileri ve değerli konuklar, hepiniz hoş geldiniz öncelikle. Yeşil Dönüşüm Yolculuğu başlıklı etkinliğimizde sizlerle bir aradayız. Az önce izlediğimiz kısa video, Türkiye ile EBRD arasında 10 yılı aşkın süredir devam eden işbirliğinin neleri mümkün kıldığını gösterdi. 2010'dan bu yana bu ortaklık yeşil dönüşümü hızlandırmayı, finansmanı harekete geçirmeyi, finans kuruluşlarını desteklemeyi ve Türkiye genelinde somut iklim yatırımlarını artırmayı hedefliyor. Bu işbirliğinin en önemli araçlarından biri GEFF, Yeşil Ekonomi Finansman Programı oluyor. GEFF yalnızca bir finansman programı değil, yerel finans kurumları aracılığıyla işletmelere ulaşan ve iklim hedeflerini gerçek yatırımlara dönüştüren güçlü bir mekanizma. Bu program sayesinde bugüne kadar yenilenebilir enerji, enerji verimliliği, sürdürülebilir binalar ve iklim dirençli teknolojiler alanında binlerce de proje desteklendi. Bu yatırımlar hem emisyonların azaltılmasına, hem dayanıklılığın güçlenmesine, hem de Türkiye genelinde ekonomik ve sosyal fayda oluşmasına katkı sağladı. Bugün burada yalnızca bu başarıları konuşmak için değil, artan iklim riskleri ve depremden etkilenen bölgelerin yeniden toparlanması gibi konular ışığında geleceğe nasıl ilerleyeceğimizi tartışmak için bir aradayız. Türkiye, Antalya'da düzenlenecek COP31'e hazırlanırken finans sektörünün iklim çözümlerindeki rolü elbette daha da fazla önem kazanıyor. Umuyoruz ki dünyada da çok daha fazla önem kazanır. Bugün programımızda Türkiye'nin karbonsuzlaşma yol haritasını, yeşil finansmanın bugüne kadarki etkisini ve özellikle deprem bölgelerinde yeşil toparlanma fırsatlarını ele alacağız. Şimdi açılış konuşmasını yapmak üzere EBRD Başkanı Sayın Odile Renaud-Basso'yu sahneye davet ediyorum alkışlarınızla.
Dear partners, colleagues and friends, I'm really very pleased to welcome you today at this event dedicated to the vital role of financial institutions in driving the green transition. Climate risks are economic risks. Green financing is how we turn these risks into opportunities for stronger, more resilient, and more competitive economies. And today is an opportunity to showcase that impact. And I'm very grateful to open this timely conversation. I would like to extend a particular welcome to Deputy Minister Çelik and to thank the Ministry of Treasury and Finance for their continued partnership. This event comes at a defining moment for Turkey. As the country is preparing to host COP31 and advances its own long-term climate commitments, the financial sector has a key role to play in shaping a greener and more competitive economy. At the same time, Turkey continues its recovery from the devastating 2023 earthquakes. Embedding sustainability into reconstruction is not only an environmental imperative, it is an economic priority. Together, these challenges underline one single message. Sustainability, resilience, and competitiveness are closely intertwined in the modern world, with green financing as a lever. And this is where the EBRD's role is clear. Through strategic investment, policy engagement, and partnership, we work to mainstream green finance across the economy. Our strategic and capital framework for the next 5 years reflects this ambition. We remain, as an institution, committed to allocating at least 50% of our annual investments to green financing, supporting decarbonization, climate adaptation, leveraging partnerships for impact, and advancing policy reform. Turkey offers solid ground for this agenda. A vibrant private sector combines ambition with capacity, and green investments help Turkish companies manage risks, drive sustainable growth, and create jobs and value. At the EBRD, we are proud to support this journey. In 2025, so last year alone, we invested a record 2.7 billion euros in the country, with 91% directed to the private sector. 66% of these investments were green, strengthening the resilience and competitiveness of Turkish businesses. At the heart of this success are our financial partners. Over the past decade, through financial sector partnerships, we have supported more than 12,000 green projects, reduced carbon emissions by 6.7 million tons, and delivered over 2.7 gigawatts of new renewable energy capacity. These investments have created lasting economic value while enhancing Turkey's energy security in an increasing volatile environment. And I think today we can really say that with a lot of credibility. One of the strongest lessons from our work in Turkey is the power of financial institutions to multiply impact. When sustainable finance is mainstreamed, every loan, large or small, becomes an opportunity to accelerate the green transition. Through our partnership, we provide financing and support to local financial institutions who, in turn, on lend to SMEs, corporates, and households, improving energy efficiency, expanding renewables, strengthening green standards, and mitigating climate risks. This model proved its value particularly in the aftermath of the devastating earthquakes. Under our third green economy financing facility, amounting to 1 billion euros, we earmark up to 300 million euros to support earthquake-affected businesses through partner financial institutions. This green financing supported businesses not only to recover, but to build future resilience. In Kahramanmaraş, for example, we supported a woman-led textile company to install solar panels, securing cleaner and more affordable energy. Across the region, we've also helped beekeepers sustain their businesses, enabling them to continue creating value while preserving nature. Before I close and I pass on the microphone, please allow me to thank our financial partners and the EBRD teams who made this impact possible. We are also extremely grateful to our donor partners, including the Climate Investment Fund and Taiwan ICDF, whose support has been essential in expanding our impact and in driving green and resilient recovery in earthquake-affected regions. To conclude, Turkey has really already demonstrated what partnership, innovation, and strategic financing can achieve. The progress we celebrate today shows that a resilient, competitive, low-carbon economy is within reach. With continued leadership from the financial sector, committed policymakers, and strong international partnerships, green finance will continue to drive transformation and even greater economic opportunities. Thank you very much.
İlham verici konuşması için Sayın Basso'ya teşekkür ediyoruz. Şimdi sözü Türkiye Cumhuriyeti Hazine ve Maliye Bakan Yardımcısı Sayın Osman Çelik'e bırakıyoruz.
Good afternoon, everyone. Madam Odile, distinguished representatives of the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, esteemed guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to address you today at this important event on green transition and the role of financial institutions in climate action. I would like to extend my sincere appreciations to the EBRD for organizing this gathering, which brings together the key stakeholders. Green transformation is no longer a sectoral policy choice. It's a macroeconomic imperative. In an increasingly climate-constrained world, the ability to align economic development with sustainability has become a defining factor of the global competitiveness. In Turkey, we have embedded climate action into our core economic policy framework. Green transformation is a key priority under our medium-term program for 2026 and 2028. Our 2053 net zero target guides this long-term structural shift. Our objective is to build a competitive and resilient economy while advancing our clean energy transition. To achieve this, we are scaling up renewable energy, improving efficiency, and mobilizing sustainable finance. We are also supporting the transformation of our industrial base so that it remains competitive in a low-carbon global economy. Turkey enacted its first climate law in 2025. Right after this enactment, we established the Carbon Market Board. In parallel, Turkey recently submitted its second national determined contribution, reflecting our increased ambition. We are also updating our climate change mitigation strategy and action plan to align with our new NDC targets. As the Ministry of Treasury and Finance, we are actively contributing to the design and pilot implementation of the Turkish emission trading system. On the financial side, we have introduced the Sustainable Banking Strategic Plan, guidelines on green debt instruments, sustainable debt instruments, and the green and sustainable lease certificates. We have aligned Turkish sustainability reporting standard with international frameworks. These steps aim to deepen market capacity, enhance the transparency, and increase investor confidence. Last but not least, the National Green Finance Strategy and Action Plan for 2026-2029 has been prepared under the coordination of our ministry. Indeed, the strategy constitutes a comprehensive roadmap for aligning our financial system with global climate objectives and will be published this year. Distinguished guests, we cannot mobilize climate finance at the scale required without strong international partnership. International financial institutions play a critical role in reducing risk, attracting the private investment, and supporting the reform. In this regard, the EBRD is one of our key partners. Under this country strategy for 2024 and 2029, the bank has placed the green economy transition at the center of its engagement in Turkey. Its priorities: renewable energy integration, energy and resource efficiency, municipal sustainability, and climate resilience are fully aligned with our national agenda. The record investment level of 2.7 billion euros in 2025 reflects the depth and the maturity of our cooperation. Notably, 66% of the bank's investments in Turkey supported the green transition, with a strong focus on the decarbonization and the renewable energy. We also welcome the EBRD's first engagement with participation finance in Turkey. This contributes to financial diversification and broadens access to sustainable financing instruments. We particularly value the progress under the Turkey Industrial Decarbonization Investment Platform. This initiative will help our industries adopt emerging carbon standards while maintaining their competitiveness in global markets. The launch of the third phase of the Turkey Green Economy Financing Facility, bringing to total GEFF support to 1 billion euros, marks another important milestone. GEFF has proven to be an effective instrument in mobilizing the green investments and supporting energy efficiency and renewable solutions, including through dedicated resources for green recovery in earthquake-affected regions. Beyond facilitating access to climate finance, GEFF has strengthened institutional capacity and enhanced knowledge transfer. As a concrete reflection of our strong commitment to GEFF, Turkey has provided a total of 850,000 euros through the EBRD Turkey Technical Cooperation Fund to support the program's technical assistance component. Importantly, we recognize that financing alone is not sufficient. The green transition also requires investment in people. We therefore appreciate the bank's focus on workforce development on green skill. As part of its financing, the bank aims at strengthening through technical cooperation, young people access, particularly women, to green skill in renewable energy sector and the related fields. These initiatives contribute not only to climate objectives, but also to social inclusion, human capital development, and the long-term productivity gains. Esteemed guests, Turkey will host COP31 in Antalya from 9 to 20 November 2026 and assume the COP presidency. This represents both a responsibility and a strategic opportunity. Our presidency will work closely with all parties, Australia as president of the negotiations, international financial institutions, and other stakeholders to ensure constructive dialogue and deliver balanced ambition and accountable outcomes. We have identified 14 priority areas for COP31, including zero waste, tourism and cultural heritage, youth and education, food security, oceans, climate finance, green industrialization, and the climate resilient cities. These priorities reflect Turkey's commitment to balance progress across mitigation, adaptation, and means of implementation, such as finance, technology transfer, and the capacity building, guided by inclusive and fairness. A key objective of COP31 will be to narrow the implementation gap by translating the ambition into concrete finance-enabled actions. We will also work to strengthen the trust and the cooperation among parties by building a constructive bridge between developed and developing countries. As a Mediterranean country already facing droughts, water stress, and the forest fire, we are acutely aware of the urgency of strengthening the adaptation and resilience. In this context, strong collaboration with international financial institutions such as EBRD will be critical to ensure that climate commitments are matched by adequate, accessible, and practicable financing flows. Distinguished guests, the green transition is not only an environmental responsibility. It is a comprehensive economic transformation agenda that will define the structure of our economies for decades to come. With sound macroeconomic policies, a robust green finance architecture, and a strong international partnership, we are confident that Turkey will continue to advance decisively on its net zero pathway. I would like to once again thank the EBRD for its continued partnership and leadership. I wish you a productive and successful event. Thank you.
Sayın Osman Çelik'e çok teşekkür ediyoruz değerlendirmeleri için. Türkiye'nin yeşil dönüşüm yol haritasına ilişkin bu perspektifin ardından şimdi odağımızı yeşil finansmanın geleceğine çeviriyoruz tabii ki. Bu kapsamda EBRD Finansal Kurumlar Yönetici Direktörü Sayın Francis Maliji sahneye davet etmek istiyorum. Türkiye'de yeşil finansmanın geleceği başlıklı konuşmasını yapacak. Welcome.
Good afternoon, dear friends. It's particularly nice to be here today and to measure how much we have grown together over the past 15 years when we started. You know, we were seeing some numbers here on the screen that our next energy efficiency framework is $1 billion. George wanted it to be 2 billion, I think, but we kind of said $1 billion is maybe enough for now. I remember the days when we started, we signed the first transactions and we were coming to each of our partner financial institutions saying, this year all we can do with you is 50 million. And you would send us back home saying, come back when you're serious. So now we are serious. $1 billion is a serious amount of money here, and we have done all of this together. Now, I would like to start by speaking of the power of the financial sector as an engine for green transformation. The progress I've already mentioned, the progress of Turkish financial institutions. What's always struck me here is the motivation of Turkish banks to improve their country. Since we began operations in Turkey, together we've channeled nearly 5 billion in green finance. That's more than 2,500 SMEs, 13,000 sub-projects, including 4,000 in the regions that were affected by the devastating earthquakes of a couple of years ago. Now, these investments have been more than just numbers, they've had systemic impact. It's like 5% of all renewable energy capacity installed in Turkey has been financed, at least in part, by the BRD. 8% of the country's waste-to-energy capacity, and 7 million tons of CO2 emissions avoided. Today, traffic in Istanbul was particularly light, but when I see numbers of removing 2.7 million cars from the street, there's days when I wish we would actually remove them from the streets of Istanbul too, to be honest. But today was an easier day. Now, you know, EBRD is a bank that has a habit of starting from zero. We go into countries where the financial sector does not exist. We go into countries where the economy, the market economy does not exist. And so when we came to Turkey, it was a big challenge for us because it was already a very sophisticated economy with a very well-functioning banking sector. So that enabled us to focus on the more sophisticated, on the more complex products and to achieve great things together. So therefore we focused our partnership with banks not on basic institution building, but on governance, innovation, and green transformation. And that partnership continues to be a pillar of Turkey's journey towards a low-carbon and climate-resilient future. Now, I'm afraid that I'm going to say a few things that I agree with the Deputy Minister. So bear with me. I'm trying to take them with a bit of a business angle, but we are very, very, very compatible. My next point, the next thing I'd like to talk about is how green is actually good for competitiveness. We hear a lot about, across global markets, is green still on the agenda? Is it worth it? And so on and so forth. Let me say it here very clearly. Green is here to stay because what is good for the planet is also good for the wallet. Greed has become green. And so green is here to stay because people make money out of it. Regardless what people want to do to say, let's not do green anymore, investors will vote, and they will vote with their money. Now, in Turkey, we see this link is sharper than anywhere else. We see global supply chains decarbonizing rapidly, and companies in Turkey are very focused on global supply chain. I'm impressed. I was in Gaziantep in October to visit the earthquake region, and I'm impressed at how the companies in that region, their world is the planet. Their world is not the Gaziantep region, is not even the borders of this country. Their world is the planet. They need to be globally competitive, and therefore they need to be green. They need to adapt to the CBAM, the EU Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, which reshapes market access. And I know they've already started and to some extent already completed that adaptation. The volatility we see in fossil fuel prices also means that investments in green technology is a better choice. You don't need to check in the morning that the sun will be able to pass the straits. The sun will give you sun every morning, regardless of the negotiations that are ongoing somewhere else in the world. And in the meantime, one of the key strengths of the Turkish economy, the agri-food sector, also needs to adapt and is confronting mounting climate impacts, which impact the competitiveness. So green and competitive are becoming synonymous. And it is you in this room, it is the financial sector that holds the levers to accelerate this transition by directing the capital to where it is most needed, by helping your clients plan and implement their transition, and by pricing risk more accurately. And you're experts on all of these things. We count on you all, the financial institutions in this room, to help do that. Now, taking a step back in terms, I'd like to say a few words about the EBRD's global strategy for 2030, the green economy transition strategy, and what it means here. The board just approved it last week, so it's fresh news. And we have two strategies that are actually very recently approved. The financial institution strategy was approved in December. The green strategy was approved just now. So we're good to go for the next 5 years together. Now, at the heart of the strategy are three core commitments. Number one, scale. Much larger volumes of green finance. We aim to mobilize across the countries of operation of EBRD 150 billion euros in cumulative green finance over the next 5 years, combining EBRD resources with private capital. This reflects a reality. Global investment needs for the green transition are estimated at $3 trillion annually. That's globally, not just in EBRD countries. In EBRD regions alone, the financing need is estimated to approximately 500 billion a year. So massive amount, massive opportunity. Means also that international financial institutions are essential, but cannot do this alone. Private sector mobilization is essential. The second theme of our strategy is adaptation. We focused a lot on energy efficiency, renewable energy. Now we must focus on adaptation. So we have introduced for the first time a dedicated adaptation target, a 50% increase in adaptation projects. And that matters very much for Turkey because the country is very exposed to climate-related physical risks, floods, droughts, heat wave, agricultural disruption. And the economic argument for this is compelling. Our estimates are that for every €1 invested in adaptation, the yield is 4 euros in economic benefits. So it is essential to do this. That's why we now assess the climate resilience of every single project that we do. And then the third big focus is on transition pathways. We decided a while ago that it's good to finance green. It's actually essential to finance green. But if you can move the needle on entire sectors by bringing them along on transition pathways, you have a multiple of the impact of what our money can achieve. And this is where Turkey is also showing global leadership through the sophistication of its regulation, of its management, of its banking sector, and of its financial institutions. Now, one illustration of this is the TDIP, the Turkish Industrial Decarbonization Investment Platform, which was launched in November 2024, focusing on Turkey's foundational industries of steel, aluminum, cement, fertilizers, to make sure that they remain competitive in a world shaped by CBAM and low-carbon technologies. It's unique in several ways. First, it's the world's first large-scale industrial decarbonization platform. It aims to mobilize at least $5 billion in commercial and IFI financing by 2030, and it expects to help avoid 20 million tons of CO2 emissions. So 3 times as much as the whole of what EBRD has done together with the Turkish banks in the past 15 years in just the next 5 years. So talk about acceleration. But just as importantly, It's been developed in close cooperation with the ministries in Turkey, the Ministry of Energy, other ministries, to ensure regulatory alignment, policy alignment and clarity, and targeted incentives. This year, the platform is fully operational, and when it is, it will unlock significant investment opportunities. And for financial institutions in this room, who always are focused on making money, it will generate a new wave of bankable projects, backed by technology roadmaps, regulatory visibility, and strong client demand. Now, nothing new, you will tell me. Turkey has always been an innovator in intermediated green finance. We did together years ago MIDCEF, TORCEF, which we developed jointly with the clients in this room, which are now considered global benchmarks for how to structure effective green credit lines. But leadership is not static, it's not just the victories of the past. It evolves. It builds on strong track records. For example, the Capital Markets Board reported that as of last October, total issuances in green and sustainability-linked debt investments have exceeded 560 billion Turkish lira. That proves investor appetite, it proves a healthy market, it gives us the best guarantee that we will move forward together. Now, if we look at the next phase of Turkey's green finance journey, we look at advanced climate risk assessments to price climate-related exposures, sector-specific transition planning. We move from broad-based measures to sector-specific, greater use of sustainability-linked loans and bonds, outcome-based financing models where the price and the incentives depend on the outcomes, moving beyond purely asset-based approaches, continuing to build capabilities to support clients through increasingly complex technological transitions, and of course, because I cannot not mention it, leveraging what I expect to be the fantastic COP31 to reinforce Turkey's position on the global stage. Now, on COP, let me do a little bit of a detour to Antalya just now. It will be a milestone event, not just for climate diplomacy, but for global markets, investors, and industries. And it is also a fantastic opportunity for us together, for you all to shine through your successes in implementing climate change investments. Climate finance will be at the heart of the agenda. We expect, under the Turkish presidency, a strong focus on implementation. And it's an opportunity to showcase your achievements, to demonstrate the sophistication of Turkish financial institutions to the global investor community, to influence the conversation on financing for emerging markets, and to highlight Turkey's potential to become a hub for decarbonized industry and green supply chains. We at the EBRD are committed to working closely with all of you to ensure that COP31 becomes not just a diplomatic success, but a practical investment mobilizing success. So let me close with a simple message. Today's green transition is not a cost to be managed. It is a growth opportunity to be seized. It's a chance to build a more competitive industrial base, a more resilient economy, a more modern financial sector, and a more sustainable future for the people of Turkey. Turkey's financial institutions, you have already proven your ability to deliver at scale. You've shown leadership, innovation, and dedication through easy, difficult, very difficult times. Not just when the sun is shining do we go out and work together. Also when the wind is blowing, also when the lightning is striking, we do this together. Now with GET 2030, with TDIP, with COP31 on the horizon, we have an opportunity to elevate that leadership to the next higher level. At the EBRD, we are proud of the journey we've taken together, and we're even more excited about the path ahead together. Thank you.
That was amazing speech. Thank you for that. Şimdi değerlendirmeleri için bu bölümde aslında Türkiye'deki yeşil ekonomi finansman programlarının bugüne kadarki somut etkisini ele alacağız bu kez. Etki sunumunu gerçekleştirmek üzere GEFF Türkiye Proje Müdürü Sayın Koray Göytan'ı sahneye davet edebilirsem.
Thank you, Bahar Hanım. Dear Madam President, distinguished speakers, esteemed partners and colleagues. It's a great pleasure and honor to be with you today. Before I start my presentation, can you please join us to answer a question that we asked through Menticom? You can scan this QR code, or you can go to Menticom and enter the code. So while you are doing that, I will be reading the question, and we have chosen 4 options to see where the focus is on. So, according to you, what is the most critical role of local financial institutions in Turkey's green transition? The first one is scaling green investments across the sectors, supporting SMEs and supply chains, financing climate adaptation and resilience, and aligning portfolios with Paris Agreement and net zero goals. I think answers are still coming in, so we will wait for a few moments to reflect on that one. On them. So we can take the sonucu alalım. It's not working. Çalışmıyor diyorlar. Okay, now. Okay, I can read it one more while we are waiting for the answers. So what is the most critical role of local financial institutions in Turkey's green transition? So the first option is scaling green investments across the sectors, supporting SMEs and supply chains, financing climate resilience and adaptation, aligning portfolios with Paris and net zero goals. Okay, so the answers are coming in. We see that, there's no exact focus, but scaling the green investments across the sectors and financing climate adaptation and resilience are the dominant ones. Okay, so I think that's a tie between them, sort of. Okay, then thank you very much. So these 2 are the dominant ones. And today I'm going to make a presentation about Turkey's green transition and this 15-year of journey that we have been talking. So Turkey's green transition is both a strategic priority and an economic imperative. I would like to reflect on them, these years of partnership and what is truly achieved, not only in numbers, but also in the market transformation. So, as a member of the GEFF Turkey team leading activities on the ground, today I want to go beyond the headline figures. I want to offer a broader perspective on what this journey has meant, the partnerships we built, the institutions we strengthened, and the economy we reshaped in cooperation with our stakeholders. Because this 15-year cycle, 15 years is not just a program cycle, but it is a structural change. So, as many of you are already familiar, green economic finance facilities are developed by the EBRD and supported by international and national donors. So, GEFF Turkey forms the EBRD's wider GEFF program, and it operates through a network of 220 local financial institutions across 29 countries. Through GEFF, the EBRD extends credit lines to local financial institutions, enabling them to finance eligible green investments by a broad range of beneficiaries. Under the GEFF Turkey, blended with finance, there's a comprehensive technical assistance component, and these are delivered by Stantec Turkey. So now I want to take you to this journey. You can see the timeline that we have developed for the last 15 years, but it is not simply a growth in volume. It reflects the strategic evolution over the years. The journey began back in 2010 with TURSEFT, with the focus on sustainable energy for SMEs. Phase by phase, the program has expanded, both in scope and also in loan volumes. It moved in larger scale renewable energy projects with MITSEF, into households' energy efficiency projects with TURIF, into resource efficiency following the Paris Agreement, and then into municipalities in 2018 to cover all potential beneficiaries in this transition. A major shift came in 2022 with the launch of GEFF Turkey, moving from sustainable energy to a broader concept of green economy. Inclusive finance, blue economy, and the corporate climate governance are all followed. And looking ahead, this year, Turkey will also host, as you know, COP31 in Antalya, a fitting new chapter. Each phase reflects Turkey's deepening integration into global climate agenda. So over the last 15 years, the projects have been financed in almost every province in Turkey. So this is not a niche program, it's a systemic impact. But what does this mean in real terms? So I will skip the decarbonization as is already mentioned, but we can say that energy savings are equivalent to electricity consumption of 4 million households every year. But to understand the scale of this transformation, we need to look at where we all started. So back in 2010, solar PV was just less than 1% of Turkey's energy mix. For wind, it was just over 1%. And for geothermal, it was again less than 1%. Green finance was limited, fragmented, and largely was program-driven. 50 years on, the scale of change is measurable. But I want to highlight something beyond the current figures, which you are already familiar with, the catalyzing effect of the intermediated finance. Back in 2014 and 2015, so when solar PV was still marginal in Turkey, TURSEF funds supported more than 60% of all new solar PV capacity in the country. At the same time, MISEF have helped PFIs to assess environmental and social risks of mid-sized renewable energy projects. So the programs didn't just follow the market, it helped them to create it. The reach of the program extends far beyond the energy sector. In manufacturing, companies have replaced aging process machinery, and they have installed solar PVs on their production facilities. So that's strengthening their competitiveness in export markets. In construction and in agriculture, energy-efficient equipment has cut the fuel consumption. In tourism and services, the buildings and the services have been refurbished, lowering energy bills, when also improving the guest or tenant experience. So this is a shift in how Turkey's real economy operates, more efficient, more resilient, and more competitive. And green transition is not just about decarbonization, it's also about smarter resource use. Over 100 million has been invested in resource efficiency and circular economy investments. 6.2 million tons of waste reduced annually, and 1.2 million cubic meters of water is saved each year. These outcomes are also strengthening economic resilience while also reducing the pressure on the limited environmental resources. But beyond all these numbers and figures, green finance is not just about megawatts or emissions. It's about people and the fabric of everyday life. For SMEs, it means lower energy bills, stronger business continuity, and safer working environments. For households, it means warmer homes that are cheaper to run and built to withstand both earthquake and also climate shocks. Thanks to TÜRİV's alignment with Turkey's urban transformation agenda between 2014 and 2019, as an output of finance blended with technical assistance, but also policy dialogue at the same time. So the reach into the public services is perhaps the most telling sign of maturity. In 2012, the first ESCO financing under CEFs were for an energy efficiency project in healthcare. And by the last year, medical equipment was also listed in Green Technology Selector. Lastly, solar PV systems are also installed on the rooftops of leading educational facilities that are cutting costs while giving the students on the first hand an idea on green infrastructure. So from the factory floor to hospital wards, and to the school rooftops. This is the green finance where it matters the most. Now, I would like to mention several case studies that holds a special place in the program's history. Starting with the first blue economy investment that is financed under GEFF Turkey. A shipyard in Yalova came to us. Their old cleaning process left clouds of industrial dust across the facility. So with GEFF financing and technical assistance, they switched to a modern, water-based solution, which is a system that is cleaner, that is safer for the workers, and of course far kinder to the surrounding marine environment. And this investment is just paid under 2 years. So doing the right thing for the sea was also doing the right thing for the business, and they were not in conflict. The logic is equally clear in our next example. So a packaging company in Karaman, an international exporter, was simply discarding solvents after each production run. With GEFF financing and technical support, they built a recovery system that captures these solvents and puts them back into the production. So lower waste, lower raw material costs, and a supply chain that meets the sustainability criteria of their international customers. A simple idea which was executed well. Our third example takes us somewhere that is quite different, to the beekeepers. When people think about the green finance, they usually think about renewable energy projects and machinery upgrades. However, biodiversity and natural ecosystems are just as much important part of the natural capital. So supporting the beekeepers means protecting the pollinators, food systems, and the natural capital underpinning the rural Turkish economy. It is perhaps the most humane story in this presentation. One of the beekeepers that is in Hatay, which is, as you know, one of the provinces that is affected the most from the 2023 earthquakes. And I would like to let it speak for itself.
Dünya gıda üretiminin %90'ı bu küçücük kanatlara bağlı. Onlar sadece bal üretmez, doğanın dengesini ve toprağın bereketini taşırlar. Dışarıdan bakıldığında aracılık sadece bal üretimi gibi görünebilir. Ancak gerçekte ekosistemi koruma mücadelesidir. İklim değişikliği bizi zorluyor. Operasyonlarımızı sürdürmek, verimliliği korumak ve bu döngünün kırılmamasını sağlamak için desteğe ihtiyaç duyduk. Bu noktada EBRD ile tanıştık. Aldığımız destek yalnızca bir kredi değildi. Yaptığımız işin çevresel değerini doğrulayan rehberlikti. Bu girişim, işletmelerin operasyonlarını modernize etmesini destekledi. Üretim kalitemizi korurken arılarımızın dayanıklılığını güçlendirdik. Bu destek sayesinde üretmeye devam edebilirken binlerce bitki türünün tozlaşmasına katkı sağlıyoruz. Biyolojik çeşitliliğin devamlılığını güvence altına alıyoruz. Bu sadece bizim için değil, toprağın kendisi için de bir kazanç. Bu finansmanla biz yerel üreticiler olarak faaliyetlerimizi yüksek standartlarda sürdürme gücü kazandık. Bugün yalnızca bal üretmiyoruz. Tozlaşma yoluyla gıda sistemimizin kalbini koruyoruz.
So the capital alone does not drive change. Behind every project is a business that understood the opportunity and a financial institution equipped to finance it. So financing plus knowledge is what moves green finance from niche to mainstream. Across all the regions of Turkey, the program has so far trained investors, supported partner financial institutions, and increased awareness at every level. So the result is a national footprint, green projects financed in almost every province, and not just concentrated in few major cities. When financing is combined with knowledge and partnership, it scales. That is one of the key lessons of the last 15 years. So with each phase of the GEFF, the program has introduced specialized components to address the emerging priorities. These special windows are where the program responds to the evolving needs on the ground. The corporate climate governance, or as CCG we call it, is about shifting how institutions think about climate, not just how they invest. 3 achievements stand out so far. 4 partner banks have committed to CCG action plans, so climate governance is now part of how they operate, not just what they finance. Chapter Zero Turkey was launched and bringing the climate to the boardroom because real change also requires leadership from the top. We also delivered carbon footprint assessments for over 20 companies, giving them, for the first time, a clear picture of their current emissions, a roadmap on how cutting them, but also laying the groundwork for the banks to begin managing their own financed emissions. So these are not just training exercises, they are also the early architecture of climate-aligned financial systems in Turkey. So equal access also matters. This component ensures women-led businesses are not left behind in this transition. 262 PFI staff members have been trained to identify and support women entrepreneurs accessing green finance, making inclusivity a part of how partner institutions operate, not just an afterthought. And the results are tangible. Across 5 provinces, including earthquake-affected areas, 168 women business leaders participated in a program that moved green financial literacy into hands-on investment planning. Several are now developing their own green projects. Some are already being financed under GEFF. And in a few moments, other speakers will share those stories directly with us. So when the 2023 earthquake struck, GEFF was already present across these affected regions. Earthquake response window, however, added focus and urgency, ensuring reconstruction build back greener, not just the way it was before. Across the 17 provinces which are impacted by the earthquake, 245 green projects have been financed so far. Making climate resilience part of the recovery from day one. I would now like to invite you to watch a short video illustrating what that looks like on the ground and how GEFF Turkey catalyzed green recovery through our partner financial institutions.
En zor günler geride kalmış olsa da bir zamanlar bildiğimiz hayat geçmişte kaldı. Deprem sadece evlerimize ve iş yerlerimize zarar vermekle kalmadı. Geleceğe dair güvenlik algımızı da sarstı. Yine de her şeye rağmen bir topluluk olarak birbirimize ne kadar derinden bağlı olduğumuzu bize hatırlattı. Bugün o günlerin ağırlığını yanımıza taşıyarak her şeyi daha dayanıklı ve anlamlı kılmak için çalışıyoruz. Şehrimizi yeniden inşa ederken temel motivasyonumuz sadece binaları onarmak değil, sürdürülebilir, verimli ve güvenli bir geleceği yaratmak. En zor günler geride kalmış olsa da bir zamanlar bildiğimiz hayat geçmişte kaldı. Deprem sadece evlerimize ve iş yerlerimize zarar vermekle kalmadı. Geleceğe dair güvenlik algımızı da sarstı. Yine de her şeye rağmen bir topluluk olarak birbirimize ne kadar derinden bağlı olduğumuzu bize hatırlattı. Bugün o günlerin ağırlığını yanımıza taşıyarak her şeyi daha dayanıklı ve anlamlı kılmak için çalışıyoruz. Şehrimizi yeniden inşa ederken temel motivasyonumuz sadece binaları onarmak değil, sürdürülebilir, verimli ve güvenli bir geleceği yaratmak. Deprem sonrası yeniden inşa süreci muazzam bir enerji ve hız gerektiriyor. Ancak geleneksel makineler yüksek yakıt maliyeti ve yüksek emisyon demektir. Afet bölgesindeki yeniden yapılanma sürecini hızlandırırken hem işletme maliyetlerini düşürmek hem de çevresel etkiyi en aza indirmek için özellikle enerji verimli teknolojilere geçiş tercih ettik. Yeşil teknoloji seçim aracıyla ihtiyaçlarımıza en uygun, düşük emisyonlu iş makinelerini ve enerji verimli teknolojileri seçtik. Bugünün teknolojisi ve dayanışmanın gücüyle sadece şehirlerimizi değil, güvenli, temiz ve sürdürülebilir geleceğe olan inancımızı yeniden inşa ediyoruz.
So the most important change this program has contributed to may not be the projects in project finance, but it is the financial system itself. In 2010, green finance in Turkey was largely external driven. Banks had little internal capacity, almost no dedicated green products, and limited regulatory framework. Today, they offer green mortgages, eco-vehicle loans, and renewable energy financing as standard products. They are issuing green, social, and blue bonds. ESG is also embedded into their risk management systems now. Regulation is now reinforcing what the market has already begun. Green finance has moved into something they do because their clients demand it, regulators expect it, and the competitors are doing it. That is a structural change, and it does not reverse. So behind every green investment, there lies a key question. Does this technology actually qualify as green, and how well does it perform? So the Green Technology Selector was built to answer that question. It's a free, open access platform listed pre-approved technologies across energy, water, waste, and other resource efficiency that is continuously updated and built on transparent criteria. What makes it significant is it has become beyond the program. It's now referenced in Turkey's Green Asset Ratio communique. What started as a project tool have become the national market infrastructure. That is the lasting impact of the facilities. So GEFF operates in 29 countries, but Turkey is the largest GEFF implementation globally. Inclusive finance, corporate climate governance, blue economy, many of these areas were pioneered here. Turkey does not simply implement the GEFF model, it helps to shape it. I would like to share my gratitude to our donors, to our partner financial institutions, to our stakeholders, and to my team. 15 years of impact do not happen without long-term commitment and trust. We are deeply grateful and energized for what comes next. Thank you.
30 dakikalık bir kahve aramız var. Now we have a 30 minutes coffee break. istedik. Şimdi bu oturumda yeşil finansmanın depremden etkilenen bölgelerde yeniden inşa ve sürdürülebilir iyileşmeye nasıl katkı sağlayabileceğini konuşacağız. Panelimize başlamadan önce tartışmayı kısa bir çerçeve oluşturmak için sizlerin tabii görüşünü almak istiyoruz. Lütfen telefonlarınızı ekranda birazdan göreceğiniz QR kodunu tararsanız, yalnız hemen açılmazsa biraz beklemenizi rica edersek yerli yerine geliyor. Yani bekledikten sonra soruyu görebiliyorsunuz aslında. Zannediyorum katılımlar başladı. Buradan gördüğüm üzere. Yeniden inşa sürecinde yeşil finansman sizce öncelikle hangi alana yönlendirilmeli? Enerji verimli ve dayanıklı binalar, iklime dayanıklı altyapı, ulaşım, su gibi, düşük karbonlu sanayi, döngüsel ekonomi ve atık yönetimi, doğa temelli çözümler ve kentsel yeşil alanlar. Görüşlerinizi birkaç dakika içerisinde paylaşırsanız çok seviniriz. İsterseniz o arada siz görüşlerinizi paylaşırken, ben buradan rakamı göremiyorum ama katılımcılar iyi mi? Herkes katılıyor herhalde. Şimdi panele geçelim arzu ederseniz. Panel moderatörümüz Sayın Francis Maliş, ekrandaki sonuçları hem değerlendirecek hem de kendisi paneli başlatacak. Alkışlarınızla Sayın Maliş.
Thank you, and don't leave me alone. Come on, let me invite the panel to panel members to join me on the stage. We're very pleased to have this session, which is focused on energy efficiency and rebuilding. And while you take your seats, I'd just like to say how topical this is. A few years now after the earthquake, I was very privileged to be visiting that region together with Kerem just a few months ago. And when I see the questions and I see the answers, I agree with one, because it's the very largest source of CO2 emissions, and the devastation is an opportunity to do things better than were done before. But I also think that all of the above would have been the better answer, because the needs for climate resilient infrastructure, for building industrial facilities in a better way, for better waste management, and I'm sure Edil will speak to us about what we've done as well in that region, as well as good urban green spaces, green cities, and so on. All of this is very needed across the region, and not just across the earthquake region, but also to some extent in the rest of the country. But without without further commenting on these results, I'd like to introduce my panel members. So starting with Edil, who's my colleague from the Istanbul office, but also is the regional head of Turkey and Mongolia in the infrastructure team at the EBRD. So she's based in Istanbul, and she's competing for the most stretched team, because her team is based in London, Istanbul, and Ulaanbaatar. So I think that's like 7,000 kilometers between the two ends of Edil's team. But she's in charge of those two countries. She joined us in 2013, and before that she was at Guarantee BBVA, leading the infrastructure team. In the earthquake region more recently, she led a number of projects on reconstruction: Gaziantep water project, Hatay wastewater project, Osmaniye, Malatya, and Adiyaman. All of these are cities where Edil has led the projects for wastewater. Next to her is Arda Batu, who is the Secretary General and board member of Turconfed. We've just met, and we've already agreed that he's coming to visit us in London with a group of female entrepreneurs. Today we have a green event, but EBRD has also been extremely active in women in business in Turkey. Arda leads the Confederation's direction, policy advocacy, coordination across its nationwide network, representing tens of thousands of businesses. He has a BA in Political Science and International Relations from Bosphorus University and a master's degree from Marmara University, a European Studies Institute, experience in academia, consultancy, political risk analysis, and strategic communications, which I'm sure is going to make him into a fantastic panel speaker, no pressure, for you. Following the earthquakes, Turconfed played a central role in mobilizing nationwide business networks for coordinating relief efforts and launching long-term recovery initiatives, including sustainable living centers in affected provinces and programs supporting MSME resilience in the region. Right next to me is Beryl Ouz, who completed her undergraduate education in international relations at Marmara University. She's with DenizBank, so the original historical first partner bank of EBRD in Turkey. But also Beryl is a former colleague from BNP Paribas. We share a common past as well. She started her career in 1997 at Interbank and later held senior roles in Ulusal Bank and Entebbe, where we met. She joined DenizBank in 2010, became head of FI in 2016, and since February 2022 serves as head of FI and sustainability coordination. DenizBank is playing an outsized role in the earthquake region with a focus on Hatay municipality, which is one that has been particularly severely hit. During its meeting and its coordination with the officials in that region, DenizBank acknowledged that there are still very significant needs, especially regarding social and green infrastructure, still now 3 years almost to the day after the earthquake. A list of 21 key projects was presented, including improvements to the Antakya bus station and rail infrastructure, and DenizBank is considering a GEFF3 loan, part of that billion we talked about, aimed at supporting the earthquake region. And finally, to the far end, Kerem Kachar, who's a partner at EY in Turkey in the consulting services, and is the government and public sector leader based in Ankara. He has 15 years of extensive national and international public sector consulting experience, leading large-scale transformation projects for public institutions and international organizations, not just here in Turkey, but also in the Netherlands, the UK, Belgium, Azerbaijan, and Georgia. Kerem holds a bachelor's degree from Bilkent University and a master's degree from Middle East Technical University. And we had the pleasure of working together on EBRD's earthquake region study project and a few other projects in the region post the earthquake, including a project for the Hatay municipality to map province needs. I'd like actually to ask Kerem to give a few slides and a small presentation about the key messages from the study that we did together, that EY did with EBRD for about the needs, the remaining needs now of the earthquake region. Over to you, Kerem.
Thank you, Francis. Greetings to everyone. Let me quickly start with the presentation. Happy to take part in this panel with my distinguished panelists. It's a pleasure to be here. As Francis mentioned, the objective of my presentation is to share some insights and results of our recently completed engagement, where we looked at the earthquake region, the business needs, and how this comeback story is going forward. So to start with the scope, basically we carried out an extensive research study. We looked at very traditional economic performance data on sector level, on exports, on migration, employment. We also looked at national and regional, provincial level policy documents. We also carried out an extensive field research as well. We conducted several missions to earthquake region, and the last one with our EBRD colleagues. And we conducted 30 face-to-face interviews, a survey of 600 respondents, and so on. So it was such an extensive research with different stakeholders, firms and businesses. So we kind of try to understand what is the existing need and how the businesses are recovered since the last 3 years. Then, of course, we collated all the insights under a pack of recommendations. Those are very straightforward, plug-and-play type of IFI interventions, and we reported all these things under 6 main categories: on the workforce, business environment, value chain, infrastructure, green digital, and we looked at the existing support mechanisms and how we can further strengthen those. So this is basically the scope. Don't want to create any, revoke any national traumas, but just to lay the ground to understand the economic impact of the earthquake. Just a few numbers on the catastrophic side of it. As you know, it was a really literature definition of systemic economic shock. The total cost of damage was estimated somewhere around $103 billion. It's a huge, huge impact. Like Turkey, earthquake region is also very much composed of small businesses, and they hit hardest. We see a number of firms fell almost 35% in Hatay, 33 in Malatya, 25 in Maraş. Exports as well hardest hit very much. I mean, we lost quarter of our exports in that region. Official numbers says 730,000 people left the region, but with some nearing some relatives, there are estimates like 2 million people left the region after the earthquake, and of course it resulted a critical talent gap for the businesses. Job replacement rates have fallen to 80% and so on. So the economy hit really, really hard, and it was really a paralyzed moment. So this is year number 3 now. There has been also tremendous progress in the earthquake region. We absorbed a lot of positive progress as well. There has been a lot of good stories. Maybe some of you visited the region recently, that it's like a 724 construction site. I mean, when you even stay at night, you hear the machines are working and so on, but the trauma is still there. You really sense it. I mean, I was discussing with my fellow panelists before this panel that you really sense it when you talk with the people. And the needs are really different than what we have envisaged 3 years ago after the earthquake. So starting with these new needs, I would say, so we certainly think that workforce is one of the top ones at the moment. The region lost both the quantity and as well as the quality of its labor force. Majority of them moved to lower impact cities or either major economic hubs. We estimate that the workforce is shrank by 20%. These numbers are from 2024, but there are some progress on some of them, but majority of the same. So it's very difficult for a business to attract, retain, and find and motivate the talent in the earthquake region, especially on white collar and technical blue collar. So that's a really, really top issue at the moment. On business environment, Francis also mentioned larger firms somehow managed to absorb the impacts, but most closures were mostly on the micro and small ones, so they are still in the surviving mode. I mean, it's easy to say that. They are experiencing huge capital losses. This is still going. They have basically 2 main challenges. Number 1 is production. Infrastructure recovery is not as accelerated as it should be. They still need machinery, equipment, and so on. And of course, with the tightening monetary policy and so on, with the interest rates, their financial resilience is also very much impacted by the macroeconomic performance as well. So on the business environment, survivors are still survivors, especially micro and small ones. On value chain, exports are mainly still not back to pre-earthquake levels. There are some progress on certain sectors, but majorly we are still far behind what was happening before the earthquake. Especially in Hatay, in Maraş, we are still on certain critical sectors, still behind 20-25% of the pre-earthquake export levels. When we move to infrastructure and connectivity, I'm sure Edil will comment on it later on much better, but what we have seen is there is a positive story here. The government has invested immensely. We estimated $75 billion have been so far invested only for the EQ region, for the infrastructure and the connectivity. The trade connections are majorly back. The airports are operating. The highway connections are still there. So this is an area that is still ongoing, but have really some positive outcomes. On green and digital, it's mainly valid for medium and large firms. Micro and small ones are still in the surviving mode, as I mentioned, and they need really niche technical capacity supports on this green and digital topic, especially when you look at the CBAM exposed industries in these provinces. It really says a lot. I mean, across all provinces regarding the green and digital, strong messages from the firm was, yes, we need financial support, but we also need a lot of technical assistance support as well for compliance to CBAM requirements on sector level specific tactics and so on. We were thinking an alternative tactic here if we can maybe, for example, focus on the big economies of the earthquake region like Antep, Adana, and they will act like the engine, and then the rest of the region follows them, because the region is very much connected within itself as well. On the existing support mechanisms, when you look at it, what is available on the ground for the earthquake region, we kind of mapped for private sector businesses $11 billion of available funding. Majority of these funds are coming from the IFIs, which is very good to see, such a motivation from our development partners. And you see also still the micro ones are receiving a lot of attention as well. Loans are constituting the larger parts of these supports as usual. But there are some more improvement areas here. Number one is what we noticed is that commitment is something else, but dispersing it is another issue. So there are still some improvement areas on realizing the projects on the region. I mean, firms are very okay with loans, but they need really simplified application processes. And we know there are already some simplified processes for the earthquake region. And maybe in the future, we might also think to sector or activity focus support mechanisms as well. Existing ones are very much still on the post-earthquake immediate needs, so we need to also reshuffle that focus. At the end of our engagement, we kind of categorized all the needs on the three main layers. So we call them symptoms for the analogy. So we have fundamental needs. This is mostly for micro and small firms. We have reinforcement needs. Those are mostly for small, micro, and maybe medium a little. The transformation needs, where we talk green and digital, are mostly for medium and large firms. And to treat these symptoms, we come up with several ideas for EBRD and for the wider stakeholder groups. We come up with programs like Green Production Accelerator for CBAM industries, very specific focus for exporting companies, supply chain anchor programs, train, retrain, reskilling, upskilling programs for the region. To come up with, try to kind of like a matchmaking programs for regional businesses with the larger major economic hubs in Turkey, with Ankara, Istanbul, and so on. So we had come up with several intervention modalities. So going forward, we definitely need some new perspectives, especially to start with. We certainly believe that we need to redefine what is the earthquake region. Because if you look at the official definition, we have 11 provinces. But what we are seeing most is that, we have 3 or 4 provinces that hit the hardest, and they need to receive the lion's share, at least majority of this support. So we need a redefinition here and maybe a focus going forward. Number 2, micro and small survivors are still surviving. As I mentioned, they need affordable finance and workforce. So any programs and interventions on that front, as I mentioned, in the intervention area will be very much welcomed by those firms. If we really want the good old days back, we need really exports back. So that's for sure. At some sectors, we are having it back, but majority of them, we are still at the pre-earthquake times behind it. For larger and medium firms, green and digital transformation is an important one for the CBAM and for the exports. So any programs, any interventions on that front will be much more welcomed. And last point is, despite what's happening in the region since the last weekend, we certainly believe that the earthquake region has a specific attractiveness for the development road initiative and middle corridor initiatives that is really bringing the earthquake region as a kind of a logistics hub. And we can really leverage that, not in the near future maybe, but Idil will comment on it much better than myself, but mid to long term, we still believe that there's a lot of opportunities over there. So thank you for the attention. Francis, I think I'm over with my 15 minutes, and over to you now.
Thank you very much, Kerem, for this presentation.
Thank you.
And I must say, it's this distinction between the champions that remain champions and have largely moved on, and when we meet them, they ask us about adaptation, CBAM, competitiveness, and so on, and the survivors that are still survivors is quite real. I remember this entrepreneur in Hatay who was running a business with 20 employees before the earthquake, and after the earthquake, the business didn't get destroyed, nobody was killed, but it's him, his wife, and his son, because everyone else has left. Yep. And of course, you can't recover a business, even if not just financially, when no one is here. But let me maybe now ask the panelists to intervene and share their thoughts around this presentation and their own experience of the earthquake-affected region. What key lessons have shaped your approaches? I'm going to start with Beryl at DenizBank to share your perspective on do you agree with these insights? How are they informing your current priorities? And to what extent is the environmental sustainability weaved into your priorities?
Thank you very much, first of all, for the opportunity to speak on this very important topic as DenizBank, and thank you for the very insightful presentation. Actually, so my speech also covers some of the things that were in the presentation. So what the data shows pretty much, very much resembles what we see on the ground, first of all. So DenizBank is one of the very few private banks having a large physical presence in the region with 55 branches, I should say. So with regards to the immediate response, I do not want to take a big portion of your time because we did what we have to do immediately. We declared mobilization immediately after the earthquakes, and we are still assisting our personnel, staff, especially in the most affected regions with so many ways, rent assistance, compensations for the earthquake, and etc. And also towards our customers, we had so many things. Some of them were coming from the authorities, some of them on our own, I should say. But, and when you say the lessons learned, perhaps we should start as a company from ourselves. For example, in terms of disaster recovery plans, so there are two ways of it. The first of all, the IT system backup. We very much focused on this topic, and as of 2004, we shut down our systems in Istanbul and had them worked actually in Ankara. I guess that was the very important thing, IT system backup as far as if you're a bank. And then the business continuity. We had people 15 years in Ankara, 70 staff, mainly, doing the operations work, the call centers and etc., IT, some of it. But now we are creating a mini headquarters in Ankara. So at the end, the construction will be, just finishing, completing itself in June, let's say June, July time. And we are going to have at each and every department one representative in Ankara for business continuity situation. So this is what we have done on our own. But right now, while we are transitioning from, let's say, the emergency situations to early recovery, we just wanted to assess, what are the needs and the challenges in the region. And like it is the case, it was presented in the, as Kerem Bey stated. So one of the very, very critical things, the three things that we assessed, the first thing is the small businesses kind of collapse, a good portion of it. We saw very huge immigration figures, and the talent workforce loss was very critical at all scale, I should say. Even the larger companies were, I should say, complaining about it. And the lessons, again, the question is, so the reconstruction efforts are nothing if they are not accompanied with human capital and plus economic sustainability. So that is the first thing. And the biggest working capital shortage was coming from the small businesses and manufacturing companies at every scale. So since the beginning of the earthquake, we provided effective resource management working capital loans, short-term, medium, long-term, I should say, mainly backed with KGF in some of the cases, mainly to the small businesses. And as of now, in all of the segments to these earthquake-affected regions, we have special costs, I should say. So inside the bank, there is an incentive system for earthquake-affected regions, whoever comes, and these facilities range from working capital to investment loans, short to long term. We are providing better priced loans. This is it from our perspective. And if I can give a couple of data, for example, when you compare 2022 outstanding amount of Denizbank to the region, cash and non-cash loans, we quadrupled that amount as of the end of 2025. So it is 4 times where it was back in 2022. And another data showing our commitment to the region is that the total loans compound annual growth rate for the whole bank, again 2022-2025, is 38%, whereas for the earthquake region, it's 50%. And when we look at the utilization of loans, 51% of this utilization comes from mainly SMEs and agri, actually. So, I also would like to mention that, of course, again, the lessons that we learned, you cannot do all of this alone. You need local and international partners. Not because I'm in the EBRD panel, but I really would like to reiterate, I guess I said it a couple of times in different places. EBRD, back in 2023, was the first IFI calling us what we can do together, actually. We received telephone calls in the first place. And as of May 2023, they enacted their disaster relief recovery program. And we were the first bank, actually, to utilize that loan. And then they were so quick in wrapping up it in 3 months, I should say. That's the first thing. But we saw EBRD's talent in this in COVID times, in different times, really. And since then, under disaster response framework, we acquired $136.5 million from EBRD. We restructured the existing debts of our customers, provided fresh financing, actually, to the region. And all in all, we got from IFIs, because Kerem Bey also mentioned IFI funding is quite important, and still it is, $300 million for the disaster relief sort of program, I should say. Coming to our IFI history, of course, as Denizbank, we acquired $4.3 billion from 17 IFIs up until now in 58 projects. So we are so keen and very happy in terms of collaboration with all of our IFI partners. Now, perhaps I exceeded my time, but just how we weave it to, sustainability. So that's the key question, I guess. Not from the small scale, perhaps in a huge manner, but from the medium and large scale companies now, the demand is coming for machinery renewables, resource efficiency, and energy efficient investments. We observe the need for modern production infrastructure, and there's an increasing awareness for sustainable production standards. And therefore, I should say that there is a high demand for cost-effective, I would like to underline this, the cost-effective green financing products for sure. Second, as Kerem Bey again mentioned, exports are the engine of growth in the region. The major exporting firms initially had production problems, market resilience, and they are prone to CBAM. We are ready as Denizbank to finance their transition in that sense. And we are trying to tie our funding with green and social projects as much as we can. We are doing energy efficiency, circular economy, and construction of vital social infrastructure like hospitals and schools. And on the agri front, projects reducing water usage. We are promoting climate-smart agriculture. We are even intending to cooperate with, startups actually to precisely help this region to manage the water scarcity and the water stress. So I will mention perhaps in the second round what we did with the municipalities and etc.
Thank you very much, Beryl. And I think that clearly highlights the critical role of financial institutions in supporting the recovery. But now, let me turn to the perspective of the business community. So the people who typically complain that the financial institutions are not giving enough and not doing their job well enough. So, Arda, what are your reflections on the needs for the reconstructions, the priorities, what remains to be done?
All right. How much time do I have in the initial remarks?
Five,
few
6 minutes,
I'll be
and then,
succinct.
you can go over like Beryl.
Second round, all right. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here under the auspices of EBRD, always. And as you said in the initial remarks, we'll be visiting your office in London first half of this year. Now, as our moderator was introducing me, as some of you might remember, TÜRKONFED, the Turkish Business Confederation, has over 100,000 members. And these members, of course, a substantial amount of them come from the earthquake zone. And we need to redefine the earthquake zone, by the way. I agree with the EY presentation completely. Because the discrepancy between Hatay and, say, Adana is, I mean, for those of you that are Turkish or who have visited the area, you'll see, I mean, one area is virtually untouched and another area is virtually destroyed. Now, when you look at it from the business perspective and from TÜRKONFED's perspective, having tens of thousands of members in that region, I'd like to have two main points in the first part of this panel. One about the immediate response, and second about business continuity. In the immediate response, TÜRKONFED was very lucky because we were lucky enough to be part of this global network called Connecting Business Initiative. It's an initiative based in Geneva that works on business resilience and immediate response after natural disasters. So I should say we had a very good skill set and know-how in being in the region and assisting the region. So day one, the earthquake takes place. Immediately we draw from the global examples, and we know we need to do two things. One, collect data, because without data you can't know anything. You don't know how to intervene in the region. And two, of course, the humanitarian aid and helping, assisting the business and being basically a bridge between the ones who need and the ones who want to give. And please don't take this as PR, but I think in the first 2 weeks we were able to send about $11 million of goods and services into the region. We also noticed something which is an unfortunate reality, but we need to state it if we want to make it better, which is coordination was terrible. And I also take part in this lack of coordination, I have to say, as an institution. But I think we need to realize that coordination between the public, the private, and the NGO must be there in any sort of emergency. I mean, it can be an earthquake, it can be a hurricane, it doesn't matter. But what's more important is that I think we need to construct these mechanisms so that once the disaster happens, we don't think about how to coordinate. The mechanism of coordination should be there. Now, let's not be biased, of course. I mean, it was one of the catastrophes of the 21st century, of the 20th century. And I know that it was very difficult to coordinate. But after being part of this catastrophe, 24 hours after it happened, I think it's fair to say that there could be better coordination in the immediate relief between public, private, and NGOs. So that's, I think, one of the key messages that I want to give here, and also to our international partners. Again, I cannot underline enough how important it was for Turkonfed be a part of a global initiative that has know-how from Madagascar to Philippines, you name it, wherever there's a disaster. We had an accumulated knowledge from the globe that we could partly apply or partly applicable to the earthquake zone in Turkey. And that comes to what Verda Hanım says, actually. It's so important to be part of global networks and global national networks coordinating together and assisting whatever disaster takes place. Again, it touches on the coordination effort. What Turkonfed does, our methodology, might perhaps serve as a best case example for some of the national and international institutions and representatives in this room today, is one, as I said, data was key. And it is key. It doesn't matter if it's a small-scale disaster, big-scale disaster. Unless you have the data on the situation, it's really, you don't know what to do, basically. And again, I'm proud to say that Turkonfed was the first institution that had the impact assessment report, economic impact assessment report for the earthquake. It had a global resonance, all across the globe. But it's important simply for the fact that both national and international actors, I think also EBRD, we did a presentation for the EBRD board, I think, during those times on what the data shows economically, the economic impact, and how you can assist the region. Two, I think also in the presentation and also Verda Hanım's initial remarks was a focus on the small and medium-sized enterprises. I don't have the exact data with me now, but it's all on our website, on our earthquake fact-find policy reports. SMEs were hurt. Beyond hurt, they were destroyed. It's apparent also in the EY report. It says, motomot, you wrote it, I think. The big industries, the big businesses endured. The small and medium-sized enterprises were virtually destroyed. This brings us to the infrastructure issue and, of course, the sustainability issue. One, what makes a resilient economy is a resilient infrastructure. We've seen it in this earthquake, and we've seen it time and time again. We see it every day. So I think we need to have a special focus on the resilience of infrastructure. I don't remember the name of the industrialized zone, but there was an industrialized zone in Hatay that was predominantly composed of small and medium-sized enterprises, and 100% of them were destroyed. Now, also, I think there's a very important lessons for the big enterprises that I think we should echo from here in this panel today, which is that they can endure, but if their supply chains are gone, how are they going to endure in the medium to long term? Mm-hmm. I think we need to have a very clear understanding of the small and medium-sized enterprises' role in the global economy. Forget about the earthquake zone and the 11 cities that were affected. But we saw this during the COVID times, another disaster per se, and we will keep seeing it in other disasters. So we need to focus on the small and medium-sized guy. Now, if that guy doesn't have the infrastructure to function, if that guy doesn't have the Deniz Bank or İş Bank or Garanti Bank, other banks' access to finance, and if that guy doesn't have any access to human capital, forget about that guy. that guy's gone. He's gone elsewhere. And we saw again from the EY reports that huge outflow of the human capital out of the region. And I think a fourth element over there, which I think is a bit forgotten, is when we're thinking of rebuilding, we tend to forget about the social aspect. Now, of course, the fundamental category that EY had in its presentation, that's the infrastructure. You ultimately need a place to work, right? But after that comes the social issue. The social issue is this. The guy who works in that shop, either he's the boss or he's one of the blue-collar guys. That guy needs to send his kids to the education system. You need a social environment. If he has elder kids, that guy needs to go to a cafe or cinema. It needs to be socially accommodating. That's a fact. And I'm not telling you this for the earthquake region specifically, but I see this every day. Look, a part of my job, being the Secretary General of Turconfed, is I travel across Turkey every day. And I also, maybe not 7,000 kilometers like my colleague from EBRD, but I travel quite a bit. One of the main reasons for losing human capital is the social element for the young people, especially if you want to invest in talent. So you need to have an accommodating environment for this, for socially accommodation, so as not to lose capital. I realize it might sound a bit pompous when I'm saying this, but believe me, it's important. Of course, when you look at the food chain, I'm not saying it's as fundamental as the infrastructure, access to finance and all this, but I think it's an element that is more often than not forgotten. I'll stop there. Many more lessons that we came out from this disaster, but I'll save my notes for the second round. Thank you.
But you do highlight, though, that the role of the business in such a circumstance goes way, way beyond doing business. It's a very civic and very society-minded role in the reconstruction. Now let me turn to the IFI perspective. You did mention infrastructure, so here's your answer to infrastructure. Idil, what are your reflections on this?
Thank you very much. First, I would like to mention that overall Turkey, the infrastructure gap was already around drinking water, wastewater, waste management, transport systems, renewable energy, integration of the renewable energy to major critical infrastructure, and also earthquake resilience of the public buildings, namely hospitals and schools. So that was already the case. Obviously, because of the earthquake, for those 11 cities, this infrastructure gap widened. Furthermore, also even before the earthquakes, due to rapid population growth in that region, there was already an existing strain in water services, potable water services, and access to wastewater services. So after the earthquake, the government addressed most of those, mostly in the areas of housing. However, IFIs became more active, especially in building long-term infrastructure in water infrastructure. We have established a group of IFIs together with Ministry of Environment and İlbank, a municipal, İlbank is the municipal bank which is channeling the needs of the municipalities. And through IFI community, İlbank and Ministry of Environment, we worked on the needs in the water and wastewater structure. 2 billion euro of projects have been identified in the region, up to some 80 projects, and most of it has been divided amongst the IFIs who took leading role in financing, such as us, World Bank, EIB, AFD, AIB, JICA, and others. So this was the urgent, immediate response we focused, but over those 3 years, the list gets a little bit bigger, so we know that the IFI support to infrastructure have widened in scope, so it's beyond only water now, and it's about 5 billion euros. As for us, we have signed a memorandum of understanding with the Turkish government for up to 500 million euros of financing to be provided for critical but sizable infrastructure, water infrastructure in the cities of Gaziantep, Hatay, Adıyaman, Malatya, and Osmaniye. Up until today, we have deployed 350 million euros of financing to Gaziantep, Hatay, Adıyaman, and Osmaniye cities, and the rest of the financing envelope we continue to work on, and we hope to finalize the rest of the projects in this year. So the scale of the challenge is immense, and there is a need to rebuild an entire city like Hatay. There is a need to repair the infrastructure which is impacted, but also there is a need to build pure new infrastructure because so many people have relocated, so new resettlement areas are now being built. So while doing that, I think it's having the IFIs have also the positive side of bringing sustainability and environment issues and social issues on the table. So our goal is to address the urgent recovery, but in an environmental sustainable way, and make resilient, future-ready cities. We also have some supports we are going to give to the municipalities in the region to improve their human capital capacity and organizational structure. Their capacity limitations to some extent has been addressed by the government because, as you know, the government is the counterparty of the loans. So we give our loans to the Ministry of Treasury Finance. However, the Treasury own grants are loans to those municipalities, to those cities, so their financial capacity aren't impacted. So we know that they have a financial capacity limitations. And also İlbank's presence was important because not only in companies but also in municipalities we had capacity limitations due to the loss of lives as well. So İlbank is taking an implementation role to support the cities and officials of the cities over there. Let me stop here and leave the rest for the second round.
Thank you very much. So maybe, Kerem, how does that feedback from the three panelists play to the report and to what you've observed on the ground? What are your thoughts?
Thank you, Francis. I mean, do you hear me? Yeah. Thank you. Yes, it's good to hear some positive reflections on and matching realities about our findings. I just want to highlight three things. Number one is, I mean, it's very visible from the points my fellow panelists are making that we need to focus. So we need really focus going forward. So this is really key, and we need to narrow our scope for the entire region if we want to really create the biggest impact. And number two, we really need to come up with supporting instruments for the workforce coming back to the region, strengthening the talent aspect of the businesses. That's also very important. We were thinking to design like train and retrain programs for bringing another sector employers coming to work for other employers. Because, for example, in Hatay, at the moment, the remaining workforce is completely used by the construction firms over there. It's basically fueled all the talent on the ongoing projects and so on, because there's no one remaining left for any industrial productions and so on and so forth. So we might need to think and look from a bigger perspective and to maybe bring some mobility programs between these EQ regions. And number three is, also my fellow panelists mentioned that, I mean, if we secure kind of back to integration of value chains and supply chains within the region, then I think we will have a more boost coming back to the good old days. Let's hope for it.
Thank you. Now, we have a few minutes left, I think, so I'm going to ask you to be a little bit shorter in your answers, each of you. But starting with Beryl again and focusing more maybe on the future, based on this perspective, based on this diagnostic and on this experience that you've shared, how does DenizBank plan now to structure long-term green financing in the region to balance risk management with impact and support the recovery?
Yeah, I mean, if we just very briefly touch upon, I mean, what we did. For example, municipalities are key, I believe, for that, because at the end of the day, so all of the projects that we supported just, you know, support the energy efficiency and plus sustainable municipal management. And what we did, we financed Kahramanmaraş Metropolitan Municipality for infrastructure and superstructure. For Islahiye, Antep, we did so many things. I mean, we financed hydroelectric power plant. Our leasing financed actually rooftop solar power plant project. We established Kreditli municipal service building and equipment investments. And Nurda municipality, we again, you know, financed solar power plants. And for Hatay, for example, we already provided some loans, but the needs are huge, as you just mentioned in the beginning. And so, of course, you're talking about long-term, but our main focus as DenizBank also, other than the long-term businesses, is for agri and SMEs. And actually, for agri, we must have focus, and for SMEs, on the hardest hit provinces, mainly these four cities and a couple of regions, I should say. And we have to keep farmers on their land and have SMEs operational as much as we can. On the agri side, I mean, we have 50% market share among private banks, and we provide 50% of the agri loans among private banks to these regions as well. We are trying to support farmers, I mean, with long-term flexible working capital as much as we can. And then actually, of course, another, you know, very much climate-driven effect had been the frost last year that we envisaged in all of the places in Turkey, but this earthquake region also was very much affected. We are trying to create tailor-made solutions. For example, apricot was one of the good export crops in the region. It was heavily affected. We provided interest-free loans, actually interest-free tractor loans, this and that, especially for apricot producers, I should say. We are trying to do this with the green lens. We are trying to support the drip irrigation, energy-efficient agricultural machinery, this and that. And then when we just look at the SMEs, we should, I mean, really mention that as DenizBank, in all of the state-supported packages, so we are talking about collaboration, international, but also local as well, in NEFES, in KGF-backed loans. And there is this now new cost-cap employment package, especially for manufacturing SME companies. It will also provide, I mean, it will help us with the collateralization as well. So we are one of the leading banks in all of these schemes as DenizBank. And to SMEs especially, we are trying to provide long-term affordable capital. But when, you know, we're just finalizing and concluding, we should perhaps ask ourselves what can we do more together at the end of the day for the whole region. Okay, special pricing loans are, you know, very good, but for permanent economic resiliency, we need to look at it with a holistic perspective, and we need long-term structures with grace periods and plus with risk participation schemes, you know. So that when I talk to the regional managers, you know, covering the whole branches, so that is what they are in need of. Exporters are quite important, but their reach to FX funding is limited, actually. Perhaps some for the on-site transformation, how we can construct special reconstruction loans for firms that are still living in containers. We really have to look at the region in a different methodology, I should say. I mean, not with the traditional lending products that we are seeing in everywhere else, actually. And on the social side, women empowerment is key, I believe, especially with cooperation with the municipalities in the production areas. We should train our, you know, women workers. So, I mean, patient capital, long-term financing with risk-sharing capacities, focusing on social and green impact, I should say.
Thank you. Well, it looks like George has a full order book now to fulfill. I think the next meeting with DenizBank is going to be particularly intense. Now, Kerem, if you had to translate this report and what you've heard into a kind of a practical action plan, say for the next 12 months, what would you say should be the top 3 priorities for the BRD and the partner financial institutions in this room? Top 3.
As I mentioned, not want to repeat myself, but exactly. Number 1 is again talent. So we need programs for bringing back the talent, reskilling and upskilling the talent. So there's a huge need over there. In terms of green and digital, as I mentioned in the presentation, we need technical assistance for the CPAM exposed industries. For renewable energy, demand is still there. From the interviews we conduct with the firms, but it's not only finance. For green and digital, we need also technical assistance and supports there. So we need kind of programs still be available for the earthquake region, which we also believe that it will support further coming back to the exports. And the last point is that I was thinking when I was listening to you, like now these days it's very popular, the smart medicines. You know, you take the pill and it goes directly to the illness area of your body. So you don't consume it in your whole body, but it goes directly to the area where you have the sickness. I think these kind of interventions should be like that focused at some point. Yes, we need to have some general spectrum of offering things, but we need to have very also specific instruments for that kind of stuff. For example, I mean, if you remember in our Manash visit, you remember the organized industrial zone. It was completely destroyed and it needs to come back. So we need to find a way to kind of penetrate into that area and make it back live again. So that kind of maybe innovative approaches need to be in place as well. Thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you indeed. Targeted and talent are 2 important effects. Now, Arda, on your side, you know, as you said, actually, it's very important to take advantage of global experience and also strong nationwide connections. So you've looked at the evolution of the situation since the early months after the earthquake. You've been working on this region extensively. Now, in your view, what are the most pressing needs and bottlenecks that this region still face today? And where do you see opportunities connected to the theme of today, green reconstruction? So emerging opportunities for a greener and more resilient recovery.
Yeah. I'll start with a very specific recommendation from Kerem's comment, especially about the infrastructure. We as Turkonfed, we made a policy proposal and we made it publicly, by the way, it's on our website. You know, there's this housing administration in Turkey called TOKİ, which is basically a housing development administration of our country. We suggested immediately after the earthquake that TOKİ also be a player in reconstructing, especially the industrialized zones, where the small and medium-sized enterprises are focused. And I think this is a very focused policy that is very applicable. And I think it still continues to be an opportunity. That's a very specific suggestion, but now I'll draw to the broader suggestion that we have made time and time again, not only for the earthquake zone, but for Turkey and for the global at large. Now, if we're talking about green transition in a 5-star hotel in Istanbul, in Levant, everyone in this room knows what green transition is, the path to green transition, the tools for green transition, the guides for green transition, and so forth. You know, EY knows this, EBRD knows this, and so forth. But believe me, I'm not even talking about the small guy, but the medium-sized enterprise, he has an inkling, he has an idea about the importance of green transition, or for that matter, digitalization, but he has absolutely no clue on how to take this path. So I think this is a very big burden for institutions like Turkonfed, for institutions like EBRD, for institutions like EY. Now, on our website, both on our Turkish and our English website, we have a report dedicated to green transition that was done by conducting a survey across Turkey on the awareness on green transition and the importance of green transition and so forth. And I won't get into the details because it's on our website. But some, I don't want to say terrible, but you know, the data is not pretty. One, they understand it's important, even the big guys, but they don't know the path to how to apply or how to be part of this game. And I don't need to tell you guys this, but it's one of the key items for competitive business, especially if you're an exporting company in Turkey, especially if you're an exporting company in Turkey to the European Union. You all know this better than I do, perhaps. Now, someone needs to guide this company, these companies, the small and medium-sized companies, and guide them in a very focused way on this path to digitalization and green transition. Now, after saying this, I'll complete my comments as such. Now, what we need to do, I mean, after saying this, you're going to ask me, so what? Here's the so what part. EBRD, COSGEFF, you know, the institutions that you mentioned, need to be on the ground in a more strong way and touch these businesses and explain to them. I'm sure not even half of the businesses in maybe the earthquake zone know about the incentives that Denizbank has, perhaps. And this is not your fault, by the way. Again, it's a lack of consortium way of thinking. It's a lack of coordination. And in coordination, I think all of these institutions now present in this panel need to have a very well understanding and an explanation to these businesses on this path to green transition. And I don't want to paint a dark picture, so I'll finish my comments with let's say, a positive perspective, which is this. Now, we have an area that was horribly affected by the earthquake. Horrible loss of lives, horrible loss of business, horrible outflux of population, immigration, and so forth. But there is a very big chance, I think, to rebuild, and rebuild in a smart way. Rebuild with a green transition perspective, with a sustainable perspective. But again, my final comment, I'm going to repeat this for the third time so you don't forget it, is we need to do it in collaboration, and we need to do it in a smart way. Thank you.
No, that's the need to be on the ground in a larger way. I think that's also not fallen on deaf ears. I think we have a long-standing experience of blending advisory with our financing lines, so we will be pushing even more of it through the earthquake regions. I see the colleagues nodding here. So more to do on the to-do list, but we will take we'll take that. Now we have really a couple of minutes left, Idil, before we close this panel. How about indeed large green and climate resilient infrastructure projects? How can EBRD really move the needle in the post-disaster regions today?
So we talked about the importance of climate resilient infrastructure and preparing the cities for next generations. So obviously we are doing what we are doing all over in all projects. So we are ensuring that a comprehensive assessment in terms of environment, climate risks, social risks are done, gap analyses are done, risks are mitigated with proper measures, and we are always prioritizing best available technologies, practices which employ energy efficiency measures, addresses climate-related topics, and improve the standards of the assets. And it's not only for construction, but it's also for preparation, construction, operation. And we always bring climate issues in project preparation. And on the part of the client, we require the clients to set their environmental and social monitoring systems so that the targets we have put are actually monitored, reported, and for the client that these are achieved during the progress of the projects. So what we have done, especially in earthquake region, which is quite important, I want to mention is how we address the capacity constraints in those municipalities. We had two supports aside our financings, hard capex financings. Firstly, we provided donor funds from our own resources to prepare the projects in a resilient way. So technical studies, design studies, environmental social studies, procurement studies are mostly financed by us. Actually, for the projects that EBRD financed, we have financed all of those studies through grants. And secondly, which is an ongoing study that is being now tendered and we will start, we will work with municipal water companies on the ground with Adıyaman, Hatay, Malatya and Osmaniye to strengthen the resilience and operational capacity of the municipalities. This technical assistance program has 3 pillars. First is crisis management, targeting to build skills to respond effectively, safeguard services, and restore operations after disasters. Second pillar focuses on asset management. It targets to improve strategic management of municipal assets for resilience and service continuity. And the last pillar focuses on non-financial risk management, which targets to develop capacity to address ESG risks, fostering compliance with regulations and a risk-aware culture. So it's very important for us that the cities have the capacity to address when another disaster comes.
Thank you. So we can really together bring the whole of EBRD to support these regions. Now, thank you all for sharing your experience and expertise with us today. And I'd also like to thank the donors of the GEFF3 program, the Clean Technology Fund and the Taiwan ICDF for enabling the program to focus especially on the earthquake region. And with this, please join me in thanking our panelists for sharing such rich experience today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bu değerli tartışmadan, panelden umuyorum keyif almışsınızdır diye düşünüyorum. Şimdi kısa bir videomuz var. Bu video GEFF Türkiye kapsamında kadın liderliğindeki işletmelerin yeşil finansmana erişimini destekleyen programı anlatıyor. Arzu ederseniz beraber izleyelim.
liderliğinde faaliyet gösteren bir tekstil şirketi olarak Işıksoy'da hem yerel hem de uluslararası pazarda yüksek kaliteli dokuma kumaşlar üretimi yapıyoruz. Toplam çevresel etkimizi en aza indirmek bizim için kumaşımızın kalitesi kadar önemli. Artık daha akıllı, daha çevreci bir çözüme yönelmemiz gerektiğinin farkındayım. Tam bu noktada bir GEFF finansal kuruluşu aracılığıyla EBRD'nin yeşil finansman imkanlarıyla tanıştık. Yatırıma başlamadan önce aldığımız teknik destek sayesinde enerji kayıplarının tam olarak nerelerde oluştuğunu net bir şekilde görebildik ve bizim için en verimli çözümleri belirleyebildik. 2025 yılında üretim hattımızı tamamen elektrikle çalışan yüksek verimli makinelerle yeniledik. Bu yatırım sayesinde yılda 3158 megawatt saat enerji tasarrufu sağlıyor, 976 ton karbon emisyonunun önüne geçiyoruz. Bu da Bursa'da her yıl 40.000 adet ağaç dikmekle eşdeğer.
Maritaş Tekstil, Kahramanmaraş merkezli, hem yurt içi hem yurt dışı pazarda faaliyet gösteren iplik ve kumaş üreticisidir. Operasyonlarımızı daha yeşil hale getirecek, geleceğe daha güvenli ilerlememizi sağlayacak bir programa ihtiyacımız vardı. EBRD'nin Yeşil Finansman Programı sayesinde yalnızca finansman sağlamakla kalmadık, cesur ve geleceğe hazır bir yatırımı şekillendirmemize yardımcı olan teknik rehberliği de aldık. Fabrikamızın elektrik ihtiyacının önemli bir kısmını karşılamak üzere toplam kurulu gücü 6.2 megawattın üzerinde olan 2 arazi tipi güneş enerji santraline yatırım yaptık. Güneş enerjisi yatırımlarımız 8200 megawatttan fazla temiz elektrik üretiyor.
Şimdi Yeşil Dönüşüm'de kadın erkek eşitliği ve kapsayıcı finansman başlıklı sunumla programımıza devam ediyor olacağız. Bu oturum kadın liderliğindeki işletmelerin iklim değişikliğinin azaltımı ve uyum çalışmalarındaki rolünü güçlendirmenin önemini ele alacak. Kapsayıcı finansman yaklaşımına ilişkin detayları paylaşmak üzere bu kez EBRD Kapsayıcı Finansman Bölüm Başkanı Sayın Kupova'yı, Miss Kupova sahneye davet ediyoruz.
Well, good afternoon. I'm very happy to be here with you today and to basically celebrate what we have achieved under the GEFF facilities and what is coming next. GEFFs actually combine two topics which are very close to my heart, green and inclusion. An inclusion element will be something that I will be focusing on in my speech. I will actually start by borrowing part of the speech of our president that you heard earlier about climate risks being financial risks and climate finance turning these risks into actual opportunities. And I will just add a little addition that we are actually aiming to turn this into opportunities for all. And this is an agenda which is very important for the EBRD. As you heard earlier, we have new strategies which were approved earlier this year, focusing on green, focusing on financial institutions. We actually have another strategy in the making, which is focusing specifically on the human capital and equality of opportunity. What I wanted to reiterate is that the topic of the inclusion is not going away. It's actually only going to be strengthened in the new strategies, which are now open for public consultation, and you can actually all see the documents yourself. So why do we focus on inclusion in green facilities? As you know, if we want to have effective, sustainable, and economically sound change, it does need to be inclusive. Different parts of the economy move in the green transition with a different speed. But even if large businesses move and invest into new technologies, there will still be smaller businesses that are in their supply chain that need to become green as well. And this is how we bring in the element of inclusion into the GEFFs. In my presentation, I will not be talking more about the focus on the earthquake region. You have heard this before on the very captivating panel. What I will be focusing on is specifically how we support women-led businesses in undertaking green investments. And this is the reason why I'm focusing on this specifically is because I hear this question very often. If we have dedicated facilities like Women in Business, why do we actually need to focus on women-led businesses in the green facilities? And the answer is that actually the green transition cooks up a perfect storm for women-led businesses. It basically just increases the gap in financing, which is already there, and makes this more prominent. So let me just start with a little bit of statistics. Those of you who are part of our Women in Business program are probably already very familiar with these statistics. We know that in Turkey itself, women-led businesses still face challenge in access to finance. We still have a financing gap of about $6 billion for women-led businesses. They also operate in sectors, primarily in the service sector, and tend to be smaller. If we take this into account, of course, these are much less in focus for general green finance in the market. In addition, if we look further, women-led businesses often also struggle with accessing more information. They are faced with gender norms. So, for example, it's either facing, for example, additional unpaid care responsibilities, childcare, elderly care, but also on top of that, there are financial barriers. Lack of assets that could be used as collateral, and in general, sometimes still perceived high risk by financial institutions. If we zoom in on green finance, this is what I mean by the perfect storm. Women-led businesses, because they operate to large extent in the service sector, operate in an environment with lower margins and higher reliability on working capital. This makes them much more sensitive to shocks when it comes to energy price or water scarcity. Working capital dependence, again, makes this issue even stronger. Lack of longer tenors and grace periods makes it more difficult to invest into green technologies which might need this kind of financing. And last but not least, practical information might still be more difficult to access for women-led businesses because of very often lacking streamlined awareness raising and outreach. So what do we do under GEFFs? And I think that you have seen quite a bit in the video, so I will go through this very briefly. We start every GEFF facility with an assessment, baseline assessment of the market. So understanding where are the women-led businesses, which sectors, what climate risks they face, what sort of technologies they might need. And then we build on this with awareness raising, with capacity building for the staff in partner financial institutions as well, and knowledge sharing with sub-borrowers. And as you can see on the right, Turkey is part of a big family of countries where we take this approach. It's something that we started in Turkey years ago, and we only intend to continue and build on the success. So if we look at the overall achievements, this is not for Turkey only, this is for overall GEFF facilities. We managed to reach about 12,000 women entrepreneurs. In Turkey, alone, we actually helped about 100 plus women-led businesses to get green finance. We trained 2,300 staff across 58 partner financial institutions to help them tailor their proposition towards women-led businesses. Nearly 500 women were trained on financial literacy, and more than 1,300 women participated in awareness-raising activities. Of course, this is not the only achievement. Behind these figures are women that were in the end able to go and invest into green projects, or even just adjust their operations to be more climate resilient. And let me just finish with a little bit of outline of what can financial institutions actually do to improve access to green finance for women-led businesses. And again, you might see that some of the themes are very similar to our other programs. So first of all, women-led businesses very often need tailored financial products. They might have a very different cash flow than other SMEs that might be maybe in manufacturing. Advisory is very important for women-led businesses, and again, this is something that we do have introduced into GEFF facilities. Outreach that is specific, again, for women-led businesses is something that is extremely important, because without this, there isn't that creation of the ecosystem where all the women-led businesses can support each other. I would also like to flag the staff capacity building for financial institutions. It's something that we absolutely do in all the facilities, and again, it's quite important element. Last but not least, I have mentioned here sex disaggregated portfolio data, and I know that Turkish banks are one of the most advanced in all the markets that we cover, and I think that this is an absolutely fundamental tool for you to make decisions. Where are those pockets of businesses that you can maybe target? Is it a specific sector that could be interesting? Is it a specific sector where women-led businesses are quite prominent? And with this, I actually leave you. Please do find me if you want to discuss, and I will hand over to my colleague Shona. Even though,
I thought you were coming, right? Of course. Let me do it. Ticareti kolaylaştırma programının bu çabaları nasıl desteklediğini paylaşmak üzere EBRD Ticaretinin Kolaylaştırılması Programı Direktörü Sayın Shona Taçeli sahneye davet etmekten memnuniyet duyuyorum. Buyursunlar.
Thank you. And hello everyone. Salam. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk to you about EBRD's Trade Facilitation Program, otherwise known as the TFP. It's one of our flagship initiatives, and the Green TFP is a star of our Trade Facilitation Program. It supports the transition to a greener and more sustainable future across all of our regions of operation. And many of you, our partner banks here in the room today, have been very active users of our Green TFP program, and I would like to thank you for your very enthusiastic participation, which has really helped us to drive its success. So the Green TFP, it's not just a product, it's a catalyst for change. It's a program that enables businesses, banks, and entire economies to participate in the green transition, even in markets where regulatory price incentives for green trade are still only just beginning to emerge. So let me start with a brief overview. The Green TFP was launched in 2016, so really quite, 10 years ago. And since then, it's become a cornerstone of EBRD's green mandate. Over the past decade, it supported more than 2,300 transactions, mobilized 4.8 billion euros in green trade finance across 27 economies where the EBRD invests. And so what does this actually mean in practice? Well, the Green TFP focuses on financing trade in technologies and materials to help countries adapt to and mitigate climate change. And this includes everything from sustainably sourced materials and foods to circular economy solutions, things like scrap steel, of which Turkey is a very large importer, water and transport sector improvements, renewable energy, energy efficiency and sustainable agriculture. And some notable transactions that we facilitated include the import of energy-saving residential lifts from Greece to Kosovo, wind power generation technologies from Denmark to Ukraine, waste collection vehicles from Georgia to Moldova, and sustainably sourced wood products from Romania to Egypt, Morocco, and Tunisia. In Turkey, which is a focus for today, green transactions now represent a very significant share of our portfolio. 33% by number, 51% by turnover, and 52% of our annual business investment in Turkey is green. This is a fantastic number, and I want to thank all of you for helping us to generate this business. Now, what are the benefits for you as partner banks? Well, as many of you will know, you can benefit from longer tenors, up to 5 years, increased visibility through our Green TFP awards, and the ability to meet your ESG KPIs. Benefits allow you to increase your green portfolios in response to the growing pressure on ESG disclosures and to meet regulatory and industry demands on sustainability. And very importantly, there is preferential pricing for eligible green TFP transactions, subject to a positive assessment before booking. And in Turkey today, this pricing discount is 10 basis points on the financing cost. So, how are transactions assessed as green? How do we do this? Well, we use a fast-track eligibility check via the Green Technology Selector, or the GTS, which you heard about earlier today. This is an online tool listing over 30,000 pre-assessed green products and technologies. And we also consider industry-recognized sustainability certifications, such as FSC, Rainforest, PEFC, Fairtrade, ISCC, and Better Cotton, among others. And then for more complex projects, a detailed assessment is conducted by our consultants to ensure compliance with the EBRD's requirements. Now, let me walk you through a step-by-step process. So, step 1, is the product listed in our Green Technology Selector? If yes, it's automatically assessed as Green TFP. Step 2, is the project clearly related to climate change mitigation, climate adaptation, or the circular economy? Does the product come with environmental certificates? If so, it's highly likely to be green. And then step 3, can you provide an independent technical report confirming that the project is green, or can our consultants, our EBRD experts, confirm the technical eligibility? If yes, the product or project is green. So you can see there's a pathway, a very clear pathway to this green assessment. And eligibility must be evidenced by measurable positive environmental impact, whether that's with energy or water or material savings or pollution prevention. So, to make the process even more robust and more accessible, we use the Green Technology Selector. And it helps you very quickly, both you as banks and also your clients, to be able to identify which products might be eligible for green financing. And it supports exporters and importers in making informed procurement decisions. So this is really helping to drive purchasing behavior. It covers a wide range of sectors: buildings, industry, agriculture, transport, and is a very practical resource for anyone looking to accelerate the adoption of green technologies. Now, green certifications, and this has just expanded for us. So previously, the EBRD TFP only recognized 6 green certifications. This has now expanded to 27 industry-recognized sustainability certificates, and a full list of these can be found on the TFP website, or we can send you that information. But the very exciting thing is that there's a much wider range of products that have been sustainably certified that are now acceptable for our Green TFP program. And why is certification important? Well, it's because it builds trust. And it ensures that the products and technologies that we finance genuinely deliver environmental benefits. And it helps our clients access international markets that increase and demand the proof of sustainability. So it's about demonstrating, being able to demonstrate very clearly that those products are sustainable. So what about Turkey? Well, in 2025, which was a very successful year for green trade finance in Turkey, we had a big impact. So there were 66 green transactions with a green turnover of 415 million euros. And that accounted for 1/3 of all the deals that we did here in Turkey, and more than half of the total turnover. So it demonstrates not only that there's appetite for green finance in Turkey, but also that the Green TFP is becoming an effective tool for driving real change in the economy. So Green TFP is very diverse in Turkey. It covers certified products, renewable energy, process technologies, circular economy initiatives, climate change adaptation, and water projects. And this diversity of projects is very crucial. It means that we're not just focusing on one aspect of sustainability, but we're addressing multiple environmental challenges, and we're building resilience across many different sectors. We've got a great case study, which was for the import of solar cells into Turkey. And in the previous presentation, Dana's film, we saw that textile company with its huge installation of solar panels. So this is exactly the kind of project that we love to support. And very recently, we supported a Turkish producer of these photovoltaic modules to import the cells. Sorry, it was a Turkish producer importing the solar cells to go into the actual modules themselves, which were coming from China. The project itself is going to enable the production of around 19,300 megawatts of renewable energy per year, with significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. And to make this happen, we structured it by issuing a standby letter of credit to cover the underlying loan that was received by a Turkish bank. This then allowed the local company to import the solar cells on favourable financing terms, while our guarantee covered 100% of the political and commercial risk for the Turkish bank. So it made the transaction very attractive. And this is the green economy transition in action, using trade finance to unlock investment in renewable energy and to support the decarbonisation of the Turkish economy. And we've just won an award, which we're very, very proud of and very excited about, for the programme that I've just been describing. So Trade and Treasury Payments has awarded us with the Sustainable Trade Finance Initiative of 2025. And I have to say, that's very much thank you to everybody in the room today. So, if you would like to learn more about the programme, our team is always available to answer questions and to provide support. And you'll find our contact details here. Of course, very happy to share those with you directly. So thank you very much. I know I'm the second but last speaker, so thank you all for listening and for staying awake. And I think now I'm going to be handing over to George.
Well, actually, before him, I'm just going to announce something. Okay, thank you very much. Programın sonuna yaklaşırken kapanış konuşmasına geçmeden önce salondan bir görüş almak istiyoruz. Ben şöyle şu tarafa geçeyim. Küresel iklim gündemine birlikte bakalım diye. Yine telefonlarınızı çıkarmanızı rica edeceğiz sizden. QR koduyla tarayarak elbette 5-10 saniye duraklamamız gerekiyorsa orada da duraklayarak. Soru bir veya iki kelimeyle Türkiye'de yeşil dönüşümü desteklemek için EBRD'nin yerel finans kurumları aracılığıyla sağladığı finansmanın bir sonraki önceliği ne olmalı? Bu arada ben şimdiden teşekkür etmek istiyorum. Bu önceliklerin salondan ortaya çıktığını görmek oldukça etkili. Şuradan konuşsam daha iyi olacak. Şimdi ortak çabalarımızın bir sonraki aşamasına doğru ilerlerken kapanış konuşmasını gerçekleştirmek üzere EBRD Finansal Kurumlar Direktörü Sayın George Orlov sahneye.
Good evening, good afternoon. Yes, please bring back these numbers, these words, I think, and this feedback. I think it's much more important than my face there, you know, so because I think this is so inspiring and encouraging, because it's really the direction for action. That's the terms of reference for our next 15 years of work, I think, yeah? So thank you for this. You know, this is, I think, perfect reflection of what was discussed and presented during today's session, which unfortunately is coming to an end. And I think that to maybe also add a few reflections from my side and summarize some impressions, if you like, from today, I would also like, you can actually keep, you know, I think the key words or key requests, you know, for us to develop green intermediated finance on the screen. I think they are very relevant. I think that intermediated finance has already demonstrated its ability to mobilize significant volumes of money for the real economy. But clearly the next priority is to maximize its catalytic role, embedding green transition principles across the real economy even more. This is not about doing more and the same. It's about driving systemic impact at scale and at a faster speed. Dear speakers, dear partners and friends, today's discussions reflect a shared recognition that green transition in Turkey has entered a new phase, one that requires greater coordination, greater discipline, and bigger impact. It is especially encouraging to see such a strong alignment of priorities among the participants and in this room. If today's discussions are any indication, these are not just aspirations, these are already being put in practice by many of you. As we come to the closing of today's event, allow me to thank you all for a discussion that has been both insightful and very much forward-looking. Throughout the day, we have heard a clear and consistent message. Climate finance and green economy are not the niche. They are the core drivers for resilience, competitiveness, and long-term prosperity. Today's exchanges have shown the power of partnership in turning ambition into action. From practical financing solutions to supporting businesses in earthquake-affected regions, for example, and advancing inclusive and sustainable growth, the collective effort represented in this room is truly impressive. At the EBRD, we firmly believe the strong financial systems are essential to delivering the green transition at scale. Today's discussions have reinforced how local financial institutions continue to be at the forefront of this transformation, translating strategic priorities into real investments that benefit businesses, communities, and households. And one of the most rewarding takeaways from today, for me at least, is that GEFF is far more than a credit line. It is a transformation tool. And when it is complemented by inclusive activities, by trade finance, it's becoming even more powerful and impactful. By adopting these green facilities, our partner financial institutions are setting a higher standard for climate risk management across the Turkish financial market and helping to future-proof their clients and portfolios. We have also been reminded today that resilience is built not only through capital, but through also trust, more even so, cooperation and a shared sense of purpose. This is particularly important as we look to the regions affected by the devastating earthquakes, where our partner financial institutions have a unique role to play, providing financing to businesses and municipalities and helping to ensure that recovery is both green and inclusive and sustainable. As Turkey continues its journey towards a more resilient, low-carbon and competitive economy, the role of the financial sector will remain decisive. Looking ahead, momentum will be key, maintaining the pace of investment and ensuring that the benefits of the green transition are broadly shared. And as we look towards COP31 in Antalya, let us take the opportunity to demonstrate that Turkey's financial sector is not only keeping pace with the global green agenda, but helping to lead the regional transformation through innovation, commitment, and again, scale. Let me take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to our speakers, panelists, for their valuable contributions, to our partner financial institutions, which are core in the delivery of our strategy, of our business, of our intentions, for their continued commitment, to the donors of the GEFF Turkey program for their valued support, and to all participants for their active engagement throughout the day. I would also like to thank our colleagues who worked behind the scenes to make this event so nicely organized and possible and so smoothly run. Today has clearly demonstrated that the foundations are strong, the partnerships are solid, and the opportunities ahead are significant. By continued working together, we can ensure that green finance remains a powerful engine for sustainable growth and resilience in Turkey. On that note, I thank you once again for your participation and look forward to continuing our collaboration in the months and years ahead, at least for the next 15 years, since we are marking the 15 years of achievements today. And on this note, I think I wish you a pleasant evening, green future, and nice reception drinks here. Thank you.
Sayın Orlov'a çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Bugün yeşil finansmanın sürdürülebilir büyüme, dayanıklılık ve kapsayıcılığı desteklemedeki rolünü ele almış olduk beraberce. Ortak çabalarımızın yalnızca karbonsuzlaşmayı ilerletmekte kalmayıp aynı zamanda Türkiye için dayanıklı ve sürdürülebilir bir gelecek inşa ettiğini gördük. Görmeye de devam etmeyi umuyoruz. Böylece etkinliğimizin sonuna gelmiş bulunuyoruz. Bugün gün boyunca paylaştıkları değerli görüşleri, katkıları ve tüm konuşmacılarımıza, panelistlerimize, katılımcılarımıza çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Bu sohbetleri sürdürmek ve yeşil dönüşüme yönelik ortak taahhüdümüzü kutlamak üzere sizleri de resepsiyona davet ediyoruz. Bizlerle olduğunuz için çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Hepinize iyi akşamlar.